All right, let's talk about a word we throw around all the time, culture. Today, we're going to take that word, kind of tear it down, and then build it back up in a whole new way. I'm telling you, by the end of this, you might not think about it the same way ever again. So, let's just get right into it. So, let's start with the big question. What is culture? And I'm not talking about some dry dictionary definition. No, we're trying to get at something, deeper, something that really clicks with how we live our lives and connect with the world.
Yeah, the goal here is to find what some thinkers might call an existential understanding. I know, that sounds super academic, right? But all it really means is, what does this word actually mean for us in our day-to-day lives? And to figure that out, we've got to first dismantle the old, common idea of culture that's probably stuck in all of our heads.
Okay, so first up, we're tackling what our source material calls the myth of the badge. And this is probably the version of culture that you're most familiar with. And, well, as we're about to see, it's kind of broken. I mean, think about it for a second. When somebody says the word culture, where does your mind go? Probably to things like art, right? Or literature, philosophy, the humanities. It's almost always painted as the total opposite of science, which creates this big artificial wall between them. And you can see that wall right here. In one corner, you've got the stuff that gets the culture label, literature, the arts, and so on. But in the other corner, you have things like science, business, even sports. They're just not invited to the party. It's funny, the source actually jokes that maybe sports get left out because the kind of people who call themselves cultured just aren't very athletic. And here's the real kicker. This whole way of thinking turns culture into, well, a decoration. It's not something you're a part of, it becomes something you own. It's literally like a badge you pin on your chest to prove to everyone how smart and sophisticated you are. This is where we get that classic stereotype, right? The so-called cultured man. You know the type. He's probably in a suit, dropping these huge, pompous words into conversation. He walks around with this vibe that just screams, "Admire me." He's not actually sharing anything. He's just flashing his badge. But here's the thing. It's all a myth. So let's just take that whole badge idea and toss it right in the trash. Because now we get to the really cool part, a totally new way to look at culture. Not as some shiny object, but as a giant, living, breathing organism. Okay, so first things first. Let's get this straight. Culture is not a to-do list. It's not about counting how many books you've read or how many museums you've been to. And it is absolutely not just for the humanities. It is so much bigger than that. So what is it then? Here's the new definition. Culture is the entire process of minds bumping up against each other, over and over again. Think of it like a massive organism that exists completely outside of any single person. It's not something I have or you have. It's the space between us. Let's really visualize this. It all starts at the simplest level, just one mind next to another. They interact, they share ideas, maybe they even argue a little. And then that one little interaction, it multiplies and multiplies again. It becomes this never-ending dynamic encounter. See, culture isn't some static thing you can point to. It's the constant living flow of connection happening between people all the time. And when you zoom out, all of those billions of encounters happening right now and throughout all of history, they all weave together to form this huge, incredible organism. We're all basically just cells in this giant living thing, each one of us playing a part and keeping it alive. Now, this idea has a, pretty wild implication. If culture is this collective thing, then personal culture, it doesn't really exist. The individual kind of melts into the whole. I mean, think about the people we call geniuses, right? Like an Einstein or Van Gogh. They weren't just lone wolves. They were powerful moments within that organism, made possible by the thousands of minds and ideas that came before them. All right, so if culture isn't a badge you can earn, what does it even mean to be a cultured person anymore? What does that look like in this new way of thinking? Well, here's the difference, and it's huge. On the one hand, you have the badge wearer. It's all about ego for them. Look at me, look what I know, respect me. But the person who sees themselves as part of the organism, they're humble. They understand that their ideas aren't just their achievement. They're just one small piece of this incredible shared story. They're more of a witness than a star. There's this quote from the source that just nails it. It really gets at the beautiful back and forth of it all. The idea is culture forms us so that we in turn can form it.
We're products of the world we're born into, but everything we do, say, and create helps shape the world for everyone who comes after us. It's a cycle. And all of this leads to a conclusion that's actually pretty simple, but at the same time, absolutely massive. If culture is really just the sum of all of us bumping into each other, then the big takeaway here is kind of a game changer. And it's this: every single person is a person of culture. It doesn't matter if you want to be or not. This isn't some fancy, exclusive club with a velvet rope. Just by being alive, by talking, working, creating, even just living next to other people, you are an active, essential part of this organism. You, right now, are culture. So, that leaves us with one last question to chew on. If culture isn't a trophy for a handful of smart people, but this living thing that we are all building together in real time, what exactly are we building? Something to think about, right? Thanks so much for joining me.